Good morning. For those of you joining us on the live stream, welcome. We've already been having our time on Zoom, so there's a few people already with us, but it's nice to see everyone again. It's been a while since we've been live streaming because we've stuck to Zoom, but with our new series, I know people want to be able to catch up if they miss a Sunday. So we are here with Sacred Place Live on Facebook and on YouTube for those who are over there. Here at Sacred Place, we are people of justice, inclusion, and family. Those things are intertwined for us, and so when I heard Valarie Kaur speak at our United Church of Christ General Synod this summer, completely virtual on Zoom, her words of how she came to know those of us in the United Church of Christ and the expression of Christianity among us resonated so much with her work of activism for justice. And she spoke a little of some of the things that are also in her book. And just in that, 30 or 40 minutes with her keynoting for us, I saw so much of who we are as Sacred Place. And several other of my clergy colleague friends were on our Facebook groups chatting about this afterwards of, hey, I've been considering doing a sermon series. What about some of you? And a number of us were all thinking of how to include her work that's in her book in some of what we do together. And for me, 12 weeks for a series isn't especially long. We do those kinds of things all the time. And breaking up each section of the book works well for us. And so on Sundays, I'll be going through scripture stories mostly from Jesus, I think. There'll be some from the Hebrew text, but of ways that we see Jesus living out a revolutionary love. And then the book club on the Friday after will go through the chapter that kind of corresponds with that. And so we start today with the first chapter called Wonder. And I have a song for us to enter into this time of reflection.
Wish my heart was a hammer, I'd put you back together, but it's just a heart like yours. If my hands were a paddle, I'd pull you through this trouble, but they're just hands like yours. Here's what these hands can do, be there to hold you, and when you lose your way, here's what my heart would say. Love comes back and love comes back and love comes back around. When words are a rainstorm, the lightning crash, the thunder, all but they're just words like yours. And when that storm is through, new words will find you, and what those words will say, you're gonna be okay, 'cause love comes back and love comes back and love comes back around. Love comes back and love comes back and love comes back around. Wish your eyes were a window, could see the me that you know, but they're just eyes like mine. Love comes back and love comes back and love comes back around. Love comes back and 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 love comes back around.
Our reading is from the Gospel according to Luke, chapter 19. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through town. A man there named Zacchaeus, a ruler among tax collectors, was rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but being a short man, he couldn't because of the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed up a sycamore tree so he could see Jesus, who was about to pass that way. When Jesus came to that spot, he looked up and said, "Zacchaeus, come down at once. I must stay in your home today." So Zacchaeus came down at once, happy to welcome Jesus. Everyone who saw this grumbled, saying, "He has gone to be the guest of a sinner." Zacchaeus stopped and said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anyone, I repay them 4 times as much." Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this household, because he too is a son of Abraham. The human one came to seek and save the lost." So we begin with this story of Zacchaeus. Sometimes we call him Zacchaeus, but Zacchaeus is probably more accurate. This story that is often sung in children's songs of the sycamore tree for the Lord he wanted to see. I think the notions of what we believe about him, that he was somehow cheating the people or inherently a bad person, are a bit misguided. The fact that he was a tax collector meant that he was quite literally a physical representation of the empire which oppressed God's people. The people are occupied by Rome. And so being the collector of taxes for Caesar means that he was a daily reminder. Well, not daily, but in the community, he was a reminder of the very oppression that they faced. When he encounters Jesus, Jesus tells him to come down from the tree and basically invites himself to dinner. But Jesus does something here that I see in the work that Valarie has slaved over in her book. I have a few quotes that I've pulled that I think help us. Now, if you haven't read the book, you should. Our book club, like I said, will meet on Fridays to discuss the chapter that corresponds with what I'm sharing. But for those of you who haven't, what I appreciate most about her book is how gifted of a storyteller she is. She shares the stories from her own life where she has learned and seen how revolutionary love makes a difference in the world. I won't give too much background, but she is a Sikh American and has a long history of how her family, which is a religious minority in this country, has experienced what it means to be in this country and world, especially after September 11th, which we just remembered 20 years since that yesterday. And the Sikh American community faced so much of the hate of the aftermath of that event, not being understood for who they are. They were not the ones who were involved in that, sure. And they were judged because they share the tradition of wearing turbans on the head of men. The story she shares, I couldn't do justice to share again, but she talked about one of her friends from high school who was a Christian and didn't realize that Valarie wasn't. And there was this moment in their friendship when she realized that her friend basically thought she was going to hell because she wasn't a Christian. And after that, their friendship broke down a bit. Well, more than a bit. Because, as Valarie says, Lisa, her friend, had stopped wondering about her. Because she described wonder as an admission that you don't know everything about another. I think we see a lack of wonder play out often in our country right now. The divisions we have, and I think both sides of the political spectrum are guilty of this. We other people by making assumptions about who they are, and we stop wondering about them. That's what's happened to Zacchaeus in this story. As a tax collector, the community around him has labeled him as a representative of the empire, as an oppressor, as an agent of the ways in which they as a people are marginalized. They, in turn, marginalize him. They stop wondering about him. Now, we see Jesus often break past those cultural standards that have formed, the ways in which people label God's children as other. And he dismantles that very clearly. He says, salvation has come to this house because he too is a son of Abraham. He labels him and names him as one of God's children. In that moment, he says, you have labeled this man other, but he is not. He is one of us. Jesus wonders about Zacchaeus. Instead of following the cultural standards that have been put in place. I was challenged by that realization of this story after reading this first chapter of her book. And I asked myself, what are the ways that I do that? That I label someone as other without meaning to. I mean, we are people who work hard for justice, inclusion, and family. And we understand that there are people who fight against that. But we can't just stop at that understanding. We have to look beyond the ways in which we disagree and try and understand who they are and how they came to those positions. The second part of the book gets to those who might be our enemies, whatever that means for us. And this first section is really about those who we call stranger, those who we don't know. Valarie shares a practice that she has taken on about wondering about others, whoever they might be. When she sees someone, she asks herself questions about who they are. And she writes that when she sees these people, I wonder about each of them as a person. When I do this, I am retraining my mind to see more and more kinds of people as part of us rather than them. So she's honest that there are ways in which our culture others that are perpetuated by institutions, sure, but also just in our everyday behaviors. And so it takes work to fight against those behaviors, those patterns that other people. And if we can begin to see everyone we meet, those who we might other, as a part of us, then I can see how love can be revolutionary. How the love which Jesus shows countless times can be transformative in this country where I think we need it so much. Valarie writes, we all live under the cloud of potential shaming and potential violence. As long as we live in a society that enforces hierarchies of human value, where violence is often perpetuated by the institutions of power. We see that in our story from the Gospel of Luke today, that the hierarchy of human value was affecting Zacchaeus' life. And Jesus saw past that. I think it's not something easy for us to do, but something to which we are called. As people of justice, inclusion, and family, every person, even if they are someone who strongly disagrees with us and works against the kind of world we hope and try to create, they are not of any less value as a person. We are all children of God, a God who we know as an unconditional love. So as we look to increase justice and create inclusion where it is absent and bring together all people as God's family, what institutions do we need to break down and dismantle? Institution can be something that is systemic, like racism, and the ways that our institutions support that. But it can also be the patterns in our own lives and families and communities which continue to other. So, as we look to wonder about others, to not see them for how they are different from us, but how they are part of us, I think then we begin to live like Jesus did, to love like Jesus did. I pray that everyone could begin to wonder about others. That might be something which brings us back together. I have a song for us now to reflect on these words from Jesus and even from Valarie.
When I look into the face of my enemy, I see my brother, I see my brother. When I look into the face of my enemy, I see my brother, I see my brother. 'Cause when I look into the face of my enemy, I see my brother, I see my brother. When I look into the face of my enemy, I see my brother, I see my brother. Forgiveness is the garment of our courage, the power to make the peace we long to know. So open up our eyes to see the wounds that bind all of humankind. May our shuttered hearts greet the dawn of life with charity and love. 'Cause when I look into the face of my enemy, I see my brother, see my brother. When I look into the face of my enemy, I see my brother, see my brother. Forgiveness is the garment of our courage, the power to make the peace we long to know. So open up our eyes to see the wounds that bind all of humankind. May our shuttered hearts greet the dawn of life with charity and love. 'Cause when I look into the face of my enemy, I see my brother, see my brother. When I look into the face of my enemy, I see my brother, see my father, see my mother, see my neighbor, I see my sister, I see my brother. I see my brother. When I look into the face of my enemy, I see my brother, I see my brother.
May you, as you look into the faces of everyone throughout this next week, see one of us and not someone we label as them. May we wonder about everyone we meet so that we can bring God's people back together. as always, this is your sacred place.